Providing a safe, healthy working environment is a top priority of the rice industry and your company. You play an important part in achieving that goal. Every day when you come to work at a rice handling or processing facility, whether large or small, and you gear up for work, it is important to begin focusing on your personal safety. This video will review one critical safety task we perform periodically in the rice handling and processing industry: entering bins, tanks, silos, dryers, and receiving pits to perform work. These are all confined spaces. A confined space is defined as a space large enough to enter with limited means of entry and exit. In other words, hard to get into and out of, and not designed for normal occupancy such as an everyday workspace. If the confined space has potential atmospheric, physical, or other recognized serious hazards, it is considered a permit-required confined space. It is critical that you do not enter any marked permit-required confined space without being properly trained and completing a confined space entry permit. Entry can be made into a confined space at the bottom, side, or top. This video will use top entry for demonstration purposes, but the process is the same for all entries. This video will review how to fill out a permit, evaluate potential hazards, control these hazards so you'll be able to safely make an entry into a confined space, perform your required tasks, exit the space without incident, and return it to its normal operating state. Your company will provide you with additional hands-on training prior to you performing work activities in a permit-required confined space. The permit is a checklist to ensure no hazards or safeguards are overlooked, and it notifies others about your entry. Each permit is only good for the shift and day for which it was issued, the employees identified, and the hazards evaluated and controlled. If you are assigned to make an entry into a permit-required confined space, your supervisor will provide you with a permit to be completed. This permit must be filled out completely. No question may be skipped for any reason. A permit is started by entering basic information about when, where, what, and why an entry is needed. You will need to identify who will be involved with the entry. This includes the entrant, or the person actually going inside the confined space, and the observer, who will remain outside the space to monitor the entrant's activities and be prepared to tell the entrant to exit the space if conditions become hazardous. It is also the observer's responsibility to call for help if the entrant is unable to exit the space for any reason. Backup personnel who may provide rescue services in the event of an emergency must be identified and notified of the entry. Common types of hazards that must be controlled are physical hazards, which include energized equipment, such as augers, conveyors, or other potentially dangerous exposed equipment. For confined spaces used to store, process, or convey rice, you should be concerned about infeed and discharge of rice into and out of the space. If you are inside a bin and someone turns on a switch to remove some rice or add rice to the bin, you could be drawn under or be covered by the rice and suffocate within seconds. The best method to control these physical hazards is to lock, tag, and try all infeed conveyors and spouts and all discharge equipment such as augers. If entering an empty bin, be sure all grates are in place that cover exposed augers, conveyors, or other floor openings. After locks are placed on disconnects, all start buttons must be pressed to ensure that the equipment cannot start and that the correct equipment has been locked out. Think of the three most important words concerning lockout safety: lock, tag, try. More in-depth training regarding lock, tag, try will be provided by your company. Other potential hazards are atmospheric, such as lack of sufficient oxygen, the presence of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane gas, or fumigants. Entry is not allowed unless air monitoring shows that there are no atmospheric hazards. Finally, before getting the approval of your supervisor, make sure you have all the required equipment at the confined space, and that it's in good working order. These include harnesses, lifelines, bosun's chair, respirators such as dust masks, proper lighting, a radio or other method to call for help in the event of any emergency, a tripod retrieval system for top entries, and all rescue equipment which must be staged near the entry. Once all questions have been answered, all hazards controlled, and all equipment ready to be used, your supervisor will sign and approve the entry. Mechanical ventilation must be used to control atmospheric hazards in rice bins, tanks, and silos during an entry by using existing forced air ventilation systems or portable fan systems and hoses. For top entries, the atmosphere must be tested before entering the bin. Wear the air monitor at all times. Tripod equipment must have both a raising and lowering device attached to a bosun's chair. The entrant must wear a full-body harness. And a fall protection device must be attached to the harness. It will be used for emergency retrieval in the event the raising and lowering device fails. The entrant must be connected to a lifeline. The entrant must also wear all necessary respiratory equipment. Once the entrant is in the confined space, the observer must remain at the opening and observe and communicate with the entrant. If conditions become unsafe, or the observer must leave the space, the entrant must exit the space when requested by the observer. In the case of an emergency, the observer should never enter a confined space to rescue an entrant and should never leave the area for any reason, even to get help while someone is in the space. A radio, cell phone, or other device must be used. When the work is done, it's time to get all tools and equipment out of the area and make sure all guards are in place before removing lockout-tagout devices. Once the entry is complete, the supervisor will sign the confined space permit to cancel it, and then file the canceled permit for future review. So here's a quick review of the key steps to follow to perform a safe entry. The importance of filling out a permit. Ensuring lockout of all infeed and discharge equipment using lock, tag, try. Monitoring the atmosphere for hazards and making sure not to enter if levels are not safe. Using all appropriate equipment such as harnesses, lifelines, tripods, and lights. Getting supervisory permit approval before entry. Entering only under safe conditions and exiting if conditions change. Ensuring the observer never enters a confined space to rescue the entrant. Turning in the completed permit to your supervisor. If you follow these procedures each and every time you perform permit-required confined space activities, you will be able to do them safely and go home to your family every night. Your safety is very important to us.